Hello everybody, it's Dylan Milks here for Monday, March the 21st, 2011. Wow, what a weekend this past weekend was with the developments there of the US and Italy, France, and Britain striking at Libya and starting to go down a path there of looks like it could be a long drawn out possible war there. Just want to comment on that because I find it quite interesting that some of you may not know this, but typically with the U.S., what has to happen for a president to engage in war is that he has to get the approval of the Congress and the Senate in order to go ahead with a war. Now, going back to 2003, I believe it was, with President Bush, that was what he did when before he engaged with Iraq. He actually went through the House of Representatives and the Congress and the Senate and got their approval in order to launch strikes on Iraq. Now, it's interesting to note in the case of Obama that he actually did not even do that. And it's kind of interesting because not only are Republicans questioning this move, but so are Democrats as well. Even people who have been very staunch supporters of Obama are kind of questioning what's going on here, because essentially he violated the Constitution by engaging in war without the approval of the House of Representatives and the Senate. So it'll be interesting to note, to watch this as it plays out, to see what kind of political backlash, if any, this has against Obama. Now, it's also interesting to note too that to watch it as this unfolds, because many people would describe Obama as a more liberal Democrat, certainly far more liberal than Bill Clinton was when he was president. And to see a very liberal Democratic president engage in strikes like this without having the approval of the House or the Senate, and just simply doing an executive order, it's very concerning actually, and it'll be very interesting to see how the rest of his presidential decision making plays out in the next couple years there while he's still president. So I just want to point that out, just kind of some of the flaws there that are some of the challenges he's gone through in order to some of the problems that have arisen because of his lack of following the Constitution when it comes to engaging in matters of war. So the other thing in regards to this too is, of course, this just plays into the hands of oil and gold and silver, as well as other commodities, because of course over the weekend, as these strikes unfolded, and today with the markets being opened, gold's up, silver up, and oil of course up, as well as most other commodities. So for the year now, we have silver is up $6, just over 20% already for the year, 20% gain already in about what's it been now, 2.5, just about 3 months now. So that's very exciting, and of course gold is up as well for the year, nowhere near that level, but still up. Oil is up 15% for the year, and as long as these strikes and the situation in Libya and the rest of the Middle East unfolds, I think we're going to be continuing to pay even higher and higher prices at the pump. And it's interesting to know too that if you look at the situation in Bahrain, certainly much worse than what it was a month ago. They've called in the troops from Saudi Arabia to help them with their protests and with their riots. The situation in Syria is getting far more serious. So I believe that this situation in the Middle East is far from over, and my expectation is that by the midsummer we're going to be paying probably somewhere around $1.50, $1.60 per liter in gas up here in Canada, because the situation in the Middle East with the escalation in Libya, with the situation in Bahrain getting very out of control, and places like Syria and others, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think we're going to start paying very high prices of gas in the very near future. And again, with that as well, all commodities as well continue to rise. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up here was reading an article today on CNBC, of course buried in the back here because of the situation with Japan and now the strikes with Libya. Obviously the situation, the debt crisis in Europe, of course, now with these other two major issues brewing, those two issues, of course, now at the forefront. The one situation I wanted to bring up, which I read an interesting article about today, was the situation with Portugal and their debt crisis. Now, the article was suggesting that within probably, it could be as soon as a few weeks, Portugal is going to be going to the European Union and seeking a bailout as well. And there's some real political unrest in Portugal surrounding their need to cut back, and the people not wanting to have cutbacks, and there's a big risk there of their government getting a minority government getting voted out of power by the opposition parties. So it sounds to me like their political structure is somewhat similar to Canada, where we have a minority government as well, and if the opposition parties together vote against the government's bill, then that triggers an election. So it sounds certainly like the situation in Portugal, there's a political structure anyway, is similar to ours in Canada. So there's a real risk there in the next couple of weeks that the government being voted out simply because of their proposals for cutbacks that the people don't want, which is quite funny actually, because when you have countries here who are deeply indebted and are spending far more than they're making, it kind of begs the question about what else are you going to do? How else are you going to pay the bills if you're spending more than you're making? It's kind of funny, because if individuals live, if us as individuals live like that, where we were continually spending 20% more than what we had coming in every month, it's only a matter of time before the whole thing just blows up and we're going to be declaring bankruptcy and possibly even out on the street. But yet countries continue to head down this path. Meanwhile, their citizens don't want to cut anything back and want to continue to live beyond their means and to spend more than they make. Of course, this is speaking from a national perspective, not just from an individual perspective. And the other thing I've noticed too is that as this situation in Libya and the Middle East continues to brew and continues to escalate, the U.S. dollar just continues to drop and continues to tank. The U.S. dollar so far for the year has lost over 5% of its value just in the first 2.5 months this year. And historically speaking, whenever there's been unrest in the world, whether it be wars or natural disasters or various other forms of political uprising, political unrest in the world, the U.S. dollar has always would always gain strength. But yet, in the last few years, we've continued to see these unrests just continuing to put pressure on the dollar, U.S. dollar, continuing to lose value, while people get out of their U.S. Trades and go into either other currencies or into commodities like gold and silver. And this is really unprecedented. Never before in the history of the Western world has this been happening. If you look back at the charts for the last 10 years, you'll see quite a shocking graph, because about 10 years ago, the U.S. dollar index is what it's measured in, what it's called, was at about a level of about 120, and now it's down to about just over 75, so 75.41 the last time I checked just a few minutes ago. So you can see that the U.S. dollar has essentially, in the last 10 years, has lost approximately 35–40% of its value in the last 10 years, and it kind of just begs the question, and kind of where are we headed with this, and when is this going to end? And certainly my belief is that in the very near future, I believe that the U.S. dollar will no longer be the reserve currency of the world, and there's going to be a major shift when it comes to world currencies in terms of people and countries as a collective group wanting to get out of the U.S. dollar and wanting to stop using the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. So thanks everybody for watching, and take care, and we'll see you next time. Have a good night. Bye.